The recently published CP, I think, is part of the steady build-up of what the Bank of England, the FCA, and the PRA want to do in the context of operational resilience. I think it's an important next step. As I understand it, the paper is now open for comment, and that commentary window will close in April. That gives a very small window of opportunity for institutions that it covers to really get their house in order with regard to operational resilience. As my reading of it is, institutions will now need to understand where they are connected systemically. Not only will they need to understand that, they will also have to measure empirically where they're connected. How do they do that? Well, they will then have to test. And that's we need to unpack that a little bit, because I think that's a fairly complex set of steps depending on systemic connection and the size of institution. So I think it's going to be transformative, and it's certainly going to be front and centre of most CFOs, CROs and COOs inboxes in the next sort of 12 to 18 months. In terms of what it means, I think that those institutions, which is almost all of the financial services sector, including Solve 2 institutions, including insurers and including most banks and building societies, they will then need to put themselves in a position where they understand what their impact tolerance is and how they measure that, not only now, but also on an ongoing basis.
In fact, we've been looking at this now for the best part of a year or two, and indeed, if I look back at some of the other projects and firms I've been working at, we have seen a shift since about 2015 from pure cybersecurity to operational resilience. I think that this is important because it means that we understand that it's not simply about having tools, it's about the comprehensive approach of understanding our critical business systems, the tools, technology, the people and processes involved, and how we can make sure they are not only resilient but also robust.
Most institutions don't really know where to start. This is a reasonably new field. It's a field that has its background in operational risk, and it has its background in financial stress. The non-financial stress aspect of this has probably been quite disparate. There are a number of solutions that can provide some parts of the answer. There's a lot of technical solutions that can provide some parts of the answer, and a number of frameworks that can provide some parts of the answer. What there isn't is a mechanism that you can lay at the highest level, at an aggregating level, over your institution to give you a lens on where you need to focus. That's the biggest challenge. Other challenges which are standard, the people with the experience to do it. I've talked about it being a new field, so you need the people with the experience. That's a difficult circle to square. The budgets that are required, the budgets won't be released until until leadership in these institutions recognise that this is something that they will need to attest to in policy, probably in the coming years. So those are probably some of the challenges. The organisational challenges then of actually delivering this. I think we'll be in a suboptimal place if this becomes a market feeding frenzy, because we'll put ourselves in the same position that we actually were prior to the paper being published, which is lots of different solutions, different suppliers, and not one view of how systemically connected institutions are.
I think that what we've realised over the last few years is the obsession, dare I say, with cybersecurity means that people have not been as aware of how they need to be resilient, and they need to understand the tolerances that they need to put in place in dealing with issues that can range from information assurance through to physical, through to a plethora of challenges that we face today.
There is quite a divergence between operational resilience and operational risk. operational risk looks at perhaps some of the more day-to-day specifics of running an institution that is required to report on those items. Operational resilience is something that gives you a beyond visual range capability. It allows you to look beyond the day-to-day running of your institution and actually also make an assessment of what your peers are doing and ensure that you are as equipped as you can be within the constraints that you have within your risk appetite and your risk tolerance to be resilient. So it gives you, as far as I'm concerned, a more strategic view in an ever-evolving business landscape. Most of these institutions are driven by data now. Getting to that data and making it meaningful is extremely difficult. I believe that there are some companies that, as with every marketing system, are more advanced than others. I actually think some of the more technically advanced or modern institutions in financial services will find this an easier question to answer because they have the data readily to hand. I think institutions that have got more legacy infrastructure will find it more difficult, but ironically, they're some of the institutions that might be a little more advanced in their thinking. The measurement of impact tolerance in some ways is Darwinian, because institutions that do fail because they are not resilient will be taken out of the equation and will no longer exist as entities. So the institutions that are prepared to think about this now and are prepared to put in place the steps that will make them resilient will mean that they will be more equipped to survive in a downturn, be that a physical event, be that an asymmetric attack that includes infrastructure failure, be that a data event, data exfiltration, any of the things that make up operational resilience as a whole.
Currently, I would say it's on a spectrum. Some firms will be doing it really, really well. Some firms won't have started. Our challenge is the weaknesses we have in the complexity of the ecosystem and the fact that our third-party suppliers could be the route in means everybody has to play their part in staying operationally resilient. So you can't just look at your organization in kind of isolation. You must make sure that your entire supply chain is as good as your standards. Otherwise, that becomes your weakest link. And as we've seen with the Target exploit, it was through the HVAC system that the entire enterprise was compromised. And that led to the resignation of 3 of the 10 board members and a huge drop in share price. The solution is a top to bottom understanding of what our critical business services are, understanding what are the technology, people, and process and data components of those services, how they can be impacted, how those risks and impacts can be mitigated, and then testing so that you can be sure that your strategies will work if indeed that resilience is called into place. If I'm to just break it down into a simple phrase, it would be define, test, refine, learn. I think we're going to see some interesting moves now that we know that the regulation will be coming into play by the end of 2021, and there will probably be a couple of years after that by which firms will be given time to comply with the regulation. I think that what we need to see is an understanding of those, as I said, critical business services and the mapping of the information, processes, tech, and people that are associated with them. From there, we'll be able to work out where the weaknesses are, and that will allow us to mitigate as part of our overall risk strategies how to deal with those challenges. That will take time, so people will need to move now